Welcome to Season 7 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to share these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. When you think of veterans, what do you think of? Probably not music, radio, podcasting, or anything like that. Well, today's guest is going to change all of that for you and give you a whole new, incredible association with the word veteran. Donald Dunn is the founder of Heroes Voices Media Foundation, a nonprofit that gives our veterans an incredible outlet for music, podcasting, radio, and I'm so excited to share his remarkable journey from serviceman to nonprofit founder. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned. We are so excited to have Donald Dunn joining us today to tell us about his incredible nonprofit called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. Welcome, Donald. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
We're really excited to have you here, and I am a super fan of veterans. So let me start out, first of all, by saying thank you for your service. I love all of our veterans. I love our country deeply, and I love doing anything or having any conversation that helps our veterans. So this is a real privilege for me as well. So let's just dive right into it. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what Heroes Voices Media Foundation does?
So the concept came from myself. I was podcasting, and then I realized that I was using podcasting as therapy, and I didn't realize this until about 3/4 of the way through season 1. And at that point, I just no longer cared whether one person was watching my show or 10,000. Because I was starting to feel better about myself. I was starting to be able to get stuff off my chest that I didn't talk to anybody else about. And so the foundation came from the podcast, and it started because of some musicians that came on the show.
Right.
And I seen how they were struggling with getting known, getting views, and for me it didn't matter, but for them it did, because that was also their income. That's how they paid their bills and everything else. And they were still using another form of media as therapy. I mean, their songwriting and the songs that they were singing was about the events and stuff that had happened to them. And so we started this nonprofit in the hopes that we could get veterans to continue to keep using these forms of media. There's a lot of people that think podcasting is simple and easy. And then when they start, they realize real quick that there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Oh, yes, there is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we know that veterans, when they get frustrated, they're going to walk away from something and either deal with it with anger or just try to go find something else. And that tends to not be the most healthy things that happen with the veterans. They definitely don't go back to the VA and try therapy that way.
Yeah.
And so our goal is to help them continue to keep podcasting, whether that be with a little bit of education, whether that be with the cost of some of the equipment like microphones and stuff like that. And same with the musicians. We've got a radio station that is underneath our nonprofit called Gunroom Radio. And there's 3 different stations. There's a Simplified Country, and there's a Ranger Rockwave for a rock channel, and then our Vet Mix for the anything else that you can imagine. And there's artists on there that do street music, folk music. I mean, all sorts. So if you're a mixed person, that's the station for you. But
I love that. Well, also you think about, our veterans. Mentioned the VA. I go to the VA every year and I sing at Christmas with a group of friends. And it is one of my favorite and most dreaded days of the year. It is, I don't go Christmas Day, I go a couple days before Christmas. And it just rips my heart out. It just rips my heart out. And I live in LA, so um, even the more devastating part of that journey is RVA is on, hundreds and hundreds of some of the most valuable real estate of empty land, and the amount of homeless veterans camped out with American flags in front of their tents. Just getting onto the VA property is enough to just crack you open and
Yeah.
devastate you. So, I mean, I truly love our veterans, but our veterans need an outlet, and I think it's so. I've interviewed so many nonprofits over the years where they do different swim therapy or surf therapy or animals and veterans and all sorts of different things, but it's all humans, all people, veterans or not, but especially veterans who have lived and suffered and have so much depth of life and experience and to share. And you think about where artistry comes from, it
Yeah.
comes from all of that, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. So tell me about this, Donald, because there's a moment you don't just wake up and say you're going to start a nonprofit. And obviously you mentioned a little bit about how obviously you're a veteran and were podcasting for yourself. But talk to me about kind of the moment where you were like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Was it after you'd started your own? Was it just the musicians when the light bulb went out? What all came together for you?
So some of it is just a little bit of luck. I've always been one of those guys that when I get an idea in my head and I decide to move forward, I don't change my mind. And so I was sitting there talking with a few of these veteran artists, and I said in the show, I said, what we really need is a radio station for veterans. And they told me about an organization called Operation Encore, and I reached out to them. And about that same time, good old trusty Facebook, as they were listening to me, started
Right.
showing me an advertisement that said, "Start your own radio station for $39.95." And I was like, "Well, that's it. It was meant to be." So I signed up and set it all up, and then I realized that it's a lot more to it than just setting up a radio station and
Had
then
you
having,
done radio in the past
no,
before your service? Did you have any background in any of this?
no, no. I have a full broadcasting degree from YouTube University.
But but I love, your mission and my mission are actually similar because my mission at Charity Matters is to amplify the voices of our nonprofit heroes, people like you, Donald, that are making the world better by helping other people. And your mission is to empower and elevate the voices of heroes in the form of a veteran. So
Absolutely.
we're both trying to shine a light on people who make our world better, and we're both taking, maybe it's a little flashlight, maybe it's a Bic lighter, maybe it's a little tiny can for the
Yeah,
candle. It might not be just a huge spotlight that you and I have, but we're still shining the light on people who really need it. And our hope is obviously that they're going to then shine the light on the next guy, right?
absolutely. And when you listen to some of these artists' songs, or you listen to some of the podcasts episode, and they start getting personal, you can really tell that this is not scripted or acted on. These are life events that they've gone through, lived through, and they're sharing them. And
Right.
I don't like the fact that when you hear the word veteran, somewhere it's automatically gets tied with PTSD. And
Mm,
there's things about the veterans out there that I think the world needs to see. And there's a bunch of nonprofits that help with PTSD. And
right.
I'm not under the illusion that if you're podcasting, you're going to be healed and that's therapy. But it is a starting point. It's a starting point to get you talking. It's a starting point to get you associating with other like-minded veterans, people that
Right.
you might be able to reach out to. And it's
Connecting.
also integrating you back in society to where you're able to deal with people, because you will have some frustrating moments as a podcaster.
Oh, yes, you will, and it's all gonna be technology right there, I'm telling
Yep,
you, there are days, Donald, yes, there are. We all have them, and I'm not a veteran, but I have many of those moments for
absolutely.
sure, For sure. So talk to me about a little bit about challenges. I mean, you're a veteran. You've served 3 tours.
I've done a total of 68 months is what I deployed. So between Iraq, Afghanistan, and Bosnia, um, I spent a total of 68 months on ground.
And I think what's interesting is, our military creates leaders. They do a beautiful job creating leadership and chain of command. And part of that experience is learning how to deal with challenges and when a challenge comes, what you do with it. And I think as entrepreneurs, you being one and then you training entrepreneurs, talk to me about some of the challenges you had as being newly starting a nonprofit, not your podcast, not coming, just re-entering, but you're starting a business that relies on the kindness of others, which is a really hard thing to do.
Absolutely. And the infrastructure alone is really a struggle.
Yep.
Because when you're thinking these things through, you have to be able to what if yourself to death to one, be able to protect the foundation,
Right.
and two, to make sure that your mission is accomplishing what you're trying to set out to do.
Right.
It doesn't make no sense if your nonprofit is out there for counseling and you have no counselors.
Correct.
You know?
And the IRS might have a problem with that.
And the IRS might
There's
have a
that,
problem.
and there's that thing too. Yeah.
Right.
That special tax law that we kind of follow through. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
it
lot of
is tough.
challenges there.
Yeah.
And there's supposedly, I've heard it, I haven't seen it, but I've heard rumor about a book called Nonprofits for Dummies. I think it does exist now. You can get it maybe, but not one person of the hundreds I've interviewed has ever read it. All of us just dove in the deep end of the pool, myself included, when I started a nonprofit in 2002. And we kind of figured it out. But what were some of the hardest things for you?
The hardest part for me figuring out is how to reach donors, like you said, in a vision that nobody's ever done.
Right.
And I knew when I was setting this up that it was going to be an uphill battle. And the reason why I knew that is because one of the things that Operation Encore said to me that made me decide I was going to do this. When they talked to me, it became real evident that the only way you were going to get the licensing and everything you needed was it had to become an actual business.
Right.
And I had just closed my trucking company, and I really wasn't looking for another business. And when I talked to them, he had told me that he had spent 2 years talking to radio stations and trying to get them to donate 1 hour of airtime to just the Operation Encore veteran artists.
Wow.
And they all told him no.
Wow.
So that's the
horrible.
one thing that stuck in my mind. But I didn't piece the two things together, that if a for-profit radio station's not doing it, then either nobody is wanting to be the first, or
Right.
two, they don't know how they're going to make money out of it.
Well, right. And at the end of the day, I mean, we are entrepreneurs, right? We are
Yep.
entrepreneurs. We have everything that a real business has.
Yep.
We have operating expenses, we have budgets, we have boards, which is a little bit different than some businesses, but we have a board we have to answer to. We have different tax laws. We have a lot of things we have to do.
Yep.
And it's not easy. And like entrepreneurs, most people have never done it before.
Yeah.
Right?
You are right.
Something you're not like starting a fast food hamburger. You could be a fast food hamburger guy, an entrepreneur with some great new burger. You could be, but when we do this, most of the people, and maybe you're different, but tell me if you are. Most people that I've talked to, they really just wanted to help one person. They didn't go into this thinking that they're going to save every veteran or they're going to
No.
save every person. They go in there, and most of the people I've talked to have said, if I can just change one life, if I can just help one guy, if I can just help one human, then this is worth it. What was your strategy?
And that was exactly it right there. When I went into this, like I said, at that time, the only project we had was the radio station when I first got up and running.
And what year was that, Donald? What year
This
did you
year.
start?
It started in May.
You're a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
you're a baby. Welcome.
yeah, we are still in the building phase, that's for sure.
Yeah, you are.
And the radio station just grew so fast. I mean, I had one artist in May 1st when we launched, and there's probably 70 to 80 artists on there, 500 songs.
Oh my gosh.
And that's where the infrastructure got left behind, because here I'm trying to put together a way for everybody to hear their music. And now, because I'm playing everybody's song, now you get your song played one time a day every 2 days, because there was just that much music that was being played.
Great?
And so that's where I said, well, we need to start breaking up and adding some channels and having different genres, so that people can get heard a little bit more frequently. Because the one thing I wanted to come from this is I was hoping that, I wasn't thinking that we're going to be the next, Sirius XM or this big radio station. But I was hoping that maybe some guy that's in charge of a VFW or American Legion or something like that was listening to it and was planning an event that was coming up to where they could reach out to these artists and book them. And if that helps put a little bit of food on their table and keeps them driving, then that's a win.
I love that.
And it has already done that.
That's happening. So talk to me about what fuels you to keep going, because here you are, you've been dealing with your, your own stuff, your own business. You still have laundry, groceries like the rest of us. We still have life, but you're starting this business. You're starting a hard business. You're running a radio station. You're teaching people how to be podcasters. You're teaching people, you're giving veterans all of these skills. You're trying to raise money. You're trying to market your nonprofit. You're doing 50,000 things, which means you officially are a nonprofit founder. So again, welcome. But is it those moments? What are those moments that fuels you when you say, I don't know how I'm going to do another thing today. I don't know how I'm going to get through this, when it's coming at you from every side? Because it happens a lot in this business.
So the thing that keeps me driving is I want to get to the point where the veterans are being known for their talents. Veterans have a very unique way of looking at things, and we're very good at being handed a task and just said, figure it out. And they figure it out.
Right.
I think that's why a lot of veterans become entrepreneurs is because they do have that skill set, and they don't necessarily work well with others, but they can figure things out on their own, and they can do it that way. And so when I started looking at this, I already knew there's all sorts of different PTSD type nonprofits out there.
Yes.
But there's not a whole lot that highlights the veteran that succeeded from dealing with all their traumas and everything else, and then said, I'm going to go back and live my dream. My dream was to become a musician, or my dream was to become a podcaster, or whatever. I don't care if it's a doctor, whatever your dream is. But they put those dreams on hold for the first 10, 15 years, whatever they served. And now that they're at the end of their counterparts' careers, now they're trying to start it. And there's not too many record labels that's going to say, hey, you're 45. I think you're now ready to become a musician.
Right.
And so what fuels me is I want to change that. And I want to change it to the point where there's not just a CMAs, but there's a VMAs. There's the Veteran Music Awards. There's the genres for podcasters. If you look up military podcasts, it's going to fall under one of two categories, either mental health or government and politics. And I don't really think that's the way that it should be. Veterans can be their own little category, because the types of jokes that we tell, the humors that we have, the stories that we tell, you can literally watch 3 episodes and laugh, cry, and be mad in all 3 of them.
Right.
And so I think that's what fuels me is I want to get it to where the veteran community has a recognition. They have a voice, and even like, for example, the VMAs that I'm talking about, we want to make it to where the veterans that have made it already, your George Straits and veterans like that have served and then now are icons in the industry, we want them to host it.
I love that.
And then we want the small independent guy that's playing in bars and VFWs and little festivals and just grinding, trying to make it on top of, like you said, dealing with life and their mental
Right.
health and everything
Right.
else. Um, and get it to where we can get 10 to 12 of those guys to come in, play their music live on TV, the red carpet, the paparazzi, the whole 9 yards. And maybe they'll never be the next Garth Brooks, but they will be that day.
Donald, it all starts with the vision, and I think you have a very clear one. So I think I can't wait to watch the VMAs because I don't think they're that far off in the future. I can see it already, and you've already painted the picture, which also means you're off to a great start as a nonprofit founder. So talk to
Absolutely.
me about impact. I mean, so you're just starting this journey, and whether you know this or not, but I'm going to spoiler alert, I'm going to tell you if you get to the fun grant writing process of asking for funds from foundations, they also want to know the impact. And it is such I say this over and over like a broken record, but I have such a love hate relationship with it because our jobs in running nonprofits is to serve humanity and to serve other people. And how you measure service, how you measure someone's, career or that they feel better about themselves, how you measure self-worth, how you measure mental health, how you measure all of the things as I said, I run a youth leadership organization, how you measure leadership. These are impossible things to
Yeah.
measure from an
Yeah.
impact standpoint. And so what do you think? What have you seen so far as the impact of your work? And it doesn't have to be in numbers and metrics, but what have you seen happening so far since you've been doing this?
So I will tell you some of these veterans, when I say dedication, it's another level, right? There's a female veteran, Marine, that she's on our radio station. Her name's Barbara Sim, and she literally has given up everything and bought a new van, put a bed in it, an oven in it. She wired up the generator all of herself, did all this stuff, the lights, everything. And she has literally been driving around the United States, going from gig to gig to gig to gig, trying to make this work. And
Wow.
when you see stuff like that, and you're like, she's got a vision,
Right.
Oh, and by the way, she has a very powerful story too about her military experience and the PTSD that she went into it, and she literally had a song that she wrote because of her therapist. Her therapist looked at her one day and said, you should be better by now. And she
Oh,
said, well,
jeez.
I guess I'm taking the long way home.
Wow.
And that this became a song now. Now there's a song out there called
Oh,
Long Way Home. And that was what it was about. And so when you see stuff like that, and then you find another organization like Operation Encore that has gone through our radio station and has reached out. I can't even count how many times now and said, "Hey, do you got the contact information for this veteran, this veteran?" And they're literally reaching out and
oh,
saying, "Hey, we want you to go to Zach Brown's camp,
uh,
and he's doing a songwriters convention, and we would like for you to invite you to it." You know, and now that
oh,
is
that's
an opportunity that they would have never gotten.
right. Oh, I love that. Well, don't you feel that that's kind of our payday?
It
We
is.
we don't do this for money, obviously. Um, but that's how we get paid. We get paid with these remarkable ways of I always say we have a front row seat to humanity. We get to see sometimes the best of people and we get to be part of these moments that are privileged that sometimes other people don't maybe see them, but we see
Mhm.
them. We see them really clearly and we know they're a payday. We know they're an impactful moment. We know it's a win. We know something magic is happening. And I think that that's really what this work's all about, right?
Absolutely. And again, it's putting humans with humans, and we're now communicating at a whole different level. So, regardless of beliefs and policies and everything else, when you're around these kind of events, man, all that stuff is
Right.
forgot about. And
That's
it's
right.
telling funny stories and making each other laugh and making new friends,
Right.
people
You're
you would have
right.
never met before.
And
So,
I do have to say that is one of the best parts of for me of podcasting is getting for me we get to go into the other people's worlds. Like I'm walking into your veteran world today, and all of our audience is walking into it as well. And I love being able to do that. I was telling a friend, they said, Heidi, you're kind of an archaeologist. You know, you're uncovering modern day stories.
Yeah.
And I said, I am. I'm a storyteller like you. But I love to learn about amazing people that are doing beautiful work. And I think there's so much goodness happening, and we just don't see and hear enough of it.
Yeah.
Um, it really is frustrating to me. So I'm like, well, if I can't find it, I'm just going to make it. I'm just going
That's
to create
it.
it, just like you, right?
Yep.
This is why you're my people. I'm just going to do it myself. If it isn't going to be there, then I'm going to find it.
Yep.
CNN
Absolutely.
Heroes, which was on TV last night, should not be one night a year.
Yeah.
There should not be one night a year with 1.6 million nonprofits. They should not have 1 hour dedicated to 10 people when there's 1.6 million founders. That's just founders, not even the people that work and serve, right? So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
oh my gosh.
And the thing is when you're doing stuff like this, you can also kind of see a little bit of your history from it. And the one thing that I always missed was I was never a big music guy, but I loved when MTV was actually music television. And you
You're
could
my
click,
age, Donald. You're taking me
yeah.
back.
And I
The
loved it.
80s were magical.
They were amazing. You could hit that channel, and at any time
Yep.
it was a music video. It wasn't
Uh,
some sort of crazy show or something, right?
yep.
Well,
100%. The VJs.
yep, there it's coming. We have what is called MMTV now. Uh,
Oh, I
it
love
is
it.
military music television. All these veterans that have gotten music videos that they've either made themselves or paid somebody to direct it will be on there. The Roku channel goes live hopefully here within the next couple weeks,
Wow.
and it's already up on. I've got some of the videos. I call the webpage MMTV, but it's just a sneak peek of some of the music videos that will be being played out there. And
You're gonna have an empire. You're gonna have a music empire. It's gonna be huge. I love that. So Donald, do you have like a motto that you live by, or like a phrase or something? It's kind of like your thing that kind of gets you through, or something that you say a lot?
personally, for me, my life changed when I got to the point where I could not only just say it, but embrace the words, it is what it is. And um, it's a fine line because that phrase can also be a crutch and force you to just say, well, there's nothing I can do to change it, right?
Right.
But for me, the part that has helped is when you're holding on to all this baggage and this stuff that you can't change. I can't go back in history and undo the damages that I've done. I can't go back and not go to these deployments and not have all these memories. And for me, when I finally got to that point where I could say it is what it is, and just let it go,
Right.
that's where I started seeing um, recovery. And that really came through from the podcasting when I was talking to other people. And when you get deep into a conversation with another veteran that I didn't meet until that day, and you're talking about stuff that I hadn't even told my wife about, and I completely forgot that it was being recorded or that it was live or anything,
Right.
those are the moments.
Oh, it's beautiful. Because it really, at the end of the day, everything that we do, not only as a podcaster, but really as a nonprofit founder, is about connecting with another person.
Yep.
That's what we do. And not only do we connect with other people, our job is to build community. So it's to build a community of veterans. It's to connect not just yourself to one conversation, but that conversation connects to another and another and another. And all of a
Yep.
sudden, we have this community that is supporting us. And that's really I think that's our main job as nonprofit founders. Obviously, having the vision like you have, but then being able to connect people to bring them with you along the vision is a huge part of what we do. And I think people forget that. And I think that's what separates us from kind of regular old entrepreneurs who are selling something. We're not necessarily selling something.
Yep.
We're trying to bring people together to do good.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do. It's just that simple.
Yep.
It's just that simple. But
Absolutely. That's exactly at the end of the day, it's not a handout, it's a hand up.
Yep.
and if
Yep.
I have a contact or a way to help somebody, you know, believe it or not, I've had a couple veterans that have said to me, I don't, if you ask somebody if they like my song, don't tell them I'm a veteran. And
Oh,
I said, why? And they said, well, I don't want them to like the song just because I'm a veteran. I want them to like the song because I'm an artist. And I said, they're going to like the song because it's authentic. It is you.
right.
And one of the
Right.
things that you are is a veteran. And if you have a little bit of authenticity,
Mm-hmm.
then your show, your content, whether it be music, whatever form of media you're on, is going to resonate a lot better with people.
Right.
And some of these
100%.
veterans, they don't want to look at it as somebody's just giving them a handout. They want to earn it as well. And I think that's comes from our background.
Yeah.
Everybody has a standard, and it's up to you to achieve that standard. And they kind of get that same feeling from that. But that's one of the things that my podcast has also kind of caused a little bit of problems is when we created this, there was two of us. It was myself and my old person. He reached out to me when I was closing my trucking company and offered me a job. I moved back to Missouri to help take care of my mom, and I started working with him in this job. And we started this podcast. And like I said, I
Which I
didn't.
love. I love the name of the podcast. You need to say, you need to share the name. We'll give it a big plug at the end, but you need to say, because I do I do love it.
So where the name came from was one day me and him, so he owned a little gun business, and we did a lot of little modifications and decorations and hydro dipping and stuff for people and stuff like that. And I would go over there at night and help him work. We'd reload ammo, and it was kind of just our unwinding time. We'd
Right.
go on the weekends and go to the range and go shooting.
Right.
One day I told him, I said, you know what we need to do? He said, what's that? I said, we need to start a podcast. And he just jokingly, he just started laughing. He said, oh yeah. He said, what would we call it? I said, how about two drunk dudes in a gun room? We spent so much time in his gun room, drinking a few beers and working on firearms. And that's literally where the name came from. The all of season 1 is recorded in his gun room.
I
And
love it.
there's
I
ammo
love
all
it.
laying all over the place. There's a shockwave shotgun above the entranceway. I think we're banned on TikTok for live because of that gun that's hanging on the wall. And you can always tell the people that never listen to a show because in almost 3 years now, I've never had an episode I don't think that's just about firearms or drinking. It was
That's
literally just a name from a couple veterans that were just trying to be funny, and
that
that's
well,
where it came from.
I saw that and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to meet Donald because this I am intrigued." Initially, I thought that was the name of your nonprofit. I thought, "There is no way there is a nonprofit with that name." So I was really relieved. I was really relieved when I found out the nonprofit was not the same name as the podcast, and then the nonprofit actually is Heroes Voices Media Foundation. I was like, okay, now that's a nonprofit name. That's great. But it is a super fun name for a podcast. So obviously, you've had a lot of life lessons along the way through your service in the military, through your life's journey. Just at this point, we don't get to be our age coming through MTV and not have learned a thing or two. We hope, right? We're all here to learn.
Absolutely.
So, but what have you learned just kind of even since starting this nonprofit? What have you learned?
Um,
What life lessons have you learned?
I will tell you, the one thing that I have definitely learned is when you're dealing with veterans, and especially like PTSD and stuff like that, the one thing that you need to do when you have an idea is after you've calmed down and you thought it was a great idea, you need to ask yourself again if that's still a good idea. Because there's been so many things, like so many different programs that I would like to have created. And
Right.
somebody says, you sure you want to put veterans in that situation? And then the what ifing starts happening. You're like, oh yeah, I could see how that could go bad. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I definitely, and the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put people in a situation where it becomes a powder keg, and
Right.
the wrong image is going to be seen on the foundation as well as the veteran. And
Right.
there's plenty of people out there that like to point the finger and say, see, but
Right. Well, I think there's such a fine line, I think, for all of us that are in service. Um, I'm on the board of a children's hospital, and we tell stories of families with sick children. There's a razor thin line, and we do beautiful, incredible work. But there's a razor thin line that we all walk that's so thin that no one sees, that is sharing that story with that family's obviously consent and all of that goes with it, to taking advantage of that, or how you navigate
yep,
the person you're helping without harming or hurting them.
yep,
And it's no different in what you're doing and what a lot of us do, whether we're running, a homeless nonprofit, or we're feeding people or educating them. It doesn't matter. We
right,
all have that same hurdle, and I think you have to always keep that super sensitivity chip
yep,
right out front, because that's who we're here to support.
absolutely,
And it's hard, and especially when you're dealing with, as you said, with, mental health, and you've got to be careful. The other thing too, we're entrepreneurs, so we always have good ideas. We have lots of ideas. We're like, we're gonna do
yep,
this, we're gonna do that, I'm gonna do this,
yep,
I'm gonna do that. And executing and having an idea are two very different things.
yep.
We
You
have
know,
limited resources to execute, right?
I have done so many ideas and then put a bunch of hours of work into it because in my little head it was like this is amazing,
Of
and then
course.
then when you release it, you're like, ah, the
Maybe
shiny
not.
turd, nobody liked it. But
So tell me how this journey has changed you. Have you changed since doing this?
so absolutely, I mean, um, if I went back 2 years ago, I was that veteran that we were just talking about. I did not want to leave the house. I did not associate with people. Um, I didn't I didn't go into Walmarts or places like that. And I had a hard time just functioning as a happy person. And
Wow.
I went to the VA. I did get some help, but I'm not one. I don't talk bad about the VA because it's all about, in my opinion, with the VA, it's all about situational. You go to a VA that is massive, and the quality of care you're going to get is going to feel different than it is if you go to a town that's got 800 people in it and
Right,
40 of them work there at that VA. You
right,
know,
right,
so I was lucky. The VA I went to was a smaller VA, and the people there are amazing. Um, I still did not do well with the therapy part as far as talking and stuff like that. I just could not relate to that person.
right.
And that person definitely did not understand my situation. And so when I started this podcast and as it went through the steps, I kind of hit levels as well. I went from that guy that didn't want to talk about stories, who was drinking a lot, um, to now
Hopefully
that
not hopefully not in the gun room. Hopefully they were not. Sorry, couldn't resist.
sometimes, but no,
Kids, guns and drinking do not go together.
no, they do not.
They do
And
not mix.
and that, like I said, and that's another thing too. And I don't think any of our episodes we even handled any of the firearms. It was just about location. But
Right,
now I'm that guy that drinks maybe 3 drinks a week.
right,
You know, um, and I drink when I want to, not because I'm trying to go to sleep because I haven't slept in 2 days.
right,
And so, and I do credit a lot of that to the getting stuff off my chest and opening up that powder keg and taking some of that stuff out that I have pressed down in me. Um, and then I got to that point where I was able to understand other people's situations, and
right.
I was able to figure out some of my problems. And so one of the other things that I've done is I wrote a book for my kids. I have not published it yet. I'm letting them read it. I just sent it to them a few weeks ago. But it
Aw.
answers all the questions about, why they had this laughing, happy-go-lucky dad. And then by the time they were teenagers, they had another guy that would come home, eat dinner, and go straight to the bedroom and stay there until time to go to work the next morning,
Right.
you know? And I never thought about the damages that you are also causing when you think you're
Right.
protecting your family by not talking about the stuff that has happened. And you
Right.
think you're shielding them from that, but what you're really shielding them from is understanding what you're going through. And my
So
wife,
true.
for the first 2 years of the stuff, she didn't sleep with me for the first 2 years because she got tired of getting elbowed and hit and me yelling and screaming from bad dreams. And then she would ask me what I was dreaming about, and I would lie and say I don't remember, you know.
Right.
And all of that I credit to the podcast and opening up to where I could get it to where I felt like I don't want to talk about this in person with you because I don't want it to sound like an apology, but I want to give you the information. So I put it in a book.
It's beautiful. I love that. And don't you think, I mean, this is my personal, but I feel that service, and I know you've already served, but I mean service, what you're doing now, if there is a silver bullet, if there is one, which there is not a silver bullet for anything, but if there was, helping other people somehow um takes your pain away,
Yeah.
refocuses it. It makes you take not think about yourself. It makes you look at things differently. To me, service, and I say this over and over, but I think it heals us in unimaginable ways. Whether you're grieving,
Yep.
whether you're suffering, if you can help somebody else, somehow your problems just feel a little bit smaller and you feel a little bit better.
And if you look into the community, right, there's a lot of small little mom and pop nonprofits
Oh,
that
yeah, there
are
are.
somewhere there's a veteran that's tied into it. And and a lot of that comes from that when they find that relief, that it is what it is moment, where
Right.
where life is feeling better and they're understanding things. Well, that's where the drive to do whatever mission that you came up with is to get somebody else to feel that same way.
Yep.
And what a lot of people, like you said, don't realize is that's just another level of therapy. You're
It
just leveling
is.
up at that point. And
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 we
at
don't
the
get
same
into
time,
it. We don't do that. Nobody ever, ever starts a nonprofit trying to fix themselves. That
right?
is not no, 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 no.
No,
It's just what happens.
right.
It's just an output that ends up happening that we don't expect. We
Yeah.
get into it to help one person, and next thing you know, we've helped ourselves and we've helped 2, 10, 20, 50, and then it just keeps going. And then
Yep.
here we are having these conversations.
Yep.
So
And
go
it'll
ahead.
happen to the point where you won't even realize it's happening.
It's true. And that's why when I always people are I'm like, just go help someone. Even littlest doesn't have to be big. You don't have to start a
Yep.
nonprofit. Just do the littlest thing. It's gonna make you feel so much better. It's gonna
Yep.
make you feel better. So talk to me about where we can donate, where we can support you, how we can get involved, how we can help you, and where we can listen to that really great podcast with two
So
drunk guys in a gun room.
so the main webpage is Heroes Voice Media Foundation, and you can donate through there. You can also find all the sublinks to the projects pages. For example, MUPS, Military United Podcast Stream. That's for our podcasters. You can find the link for Gunroom Radio, which is also gunroomradio.com, and you can listen to the radio station there. And that's another way that you can support. So if you hit the donate button and then you hit a link and you go and you listen to a veteran, well, now you've helped twice because even just even being listeners is helping because without it, nobody's going to want to advertise if nobody's listening, and the veterans are not going to be getting their music out and being heard and hopefully one day recognized without the listener. So even though it's not money, I don't want the listeners to think that they're not helping, because they're a big part of that. And then there's also another project that is coming out. It will be released here shortly. It's called Warrior Words, and it's going to be for the authors and bloggers and magazine art writers, and we're going to help them start navigating the publishing pages and how to get going, the formats and all that stuff. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. Donald, you are a super rock star. And I mean, like I said at the beginning, first of all, for serving and for caring for all of us and for serving our country, for that, I am so grateful. Like I said, I get a little weepy with our veterans. But for what you're doing for everybody, and the platform that you're giving them to heal, to help, to be heard, to be successful, to feel great again, to find a new career. I mean, all of those things are remarkable in themselves, but let alone doing them for veterans makes it beyond special and remarkable. So I'm just so grateful for you, for your work, and for you sharing the story with us. It just really, what a gift. Thank you. Sorry, I get a little weepy, but
well,
I
that's
said
okay.
I love you guys. I'm a super fan.
I
Super fan.
appreciate it. If there's anybody out there that wants to get involved with what we're doing, we are in desperate need of DJs. So if anybody wants especially if you're a podcaster or something and you want a free way to advertise your show, reach out to me. We need DJs to so that our radio station is not just a playlist. We want people interacting. We want, we've made it super easy to where you can find where people are playing at, what concerts are coming up. And that's what we need the DJs for, is to not just only tell the stories about the veterans, play their music, and also promote them as well. And so anybody that wants to volunteer and is looking for a free way to shell their podcast or whatever, reach out to me and we can set up some times and everything. So
I love that. Well, that is a win-win-win. So thank you so much, Donald. I am so grateful for you and for all you're doing. This is just really exciting. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I so enjoyed talking to our guest, Donald Dunn, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think his comment about unpacking the powder keg and sharing his feelings was so powerful and impactful. To learn more about modern-day heroes like Donald, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared this with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. But more than that, thank you for caring. Thank you for believing in goodness and being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. And remember that together, we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters. See you next time.